Hello there, I'm Kios the Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the Garamantes, ancient masters of the hostile Sahara. Let's get into it. All right. This article was updated March 24th, 2024, written by Aleska Vukovnik. The Garamantes, ancient masters of the hostile Sahara. In the heart of the Sahara Desert, an arid wasteland the size of the US, it seems nothing can survive. But there were some who mastered this most inhospitable of landscapes and turned an empty land into their home. The ancient Garamantes flourished here in what is now modern-day Libya. Emerging around 1 millennia BC, the Garamantes established a remarkable society. These were not simply outcasts clinging on to life. They were a sophisticated people, their settlements characterized by innovative water management techniques, complex urban centers, and connected through extensive trade networks. Despite the harsh desert environment, they thrived for several centuries, leaving behind a legacy that has endured to this day. How did they manage this thousands of years ago? And what was their ultimate fate? Masters of the desert. At the core of the Garamantian society was their mastery of water resources in an arid landscape. They developed an intricate system of underground tunnels and wells known as thagras to tap into groundwater sources, allowing them to cultivate crops and sustain settlements in areas where water was scarce. That's incredible. It kind of makes you wonder, exactly where did they get this knowledge? As we have here a illustration of how a Fagara or Quant was used by the Garamantes to bring water to the desert. You have the mother well, which is the main water source for the Quant. You have the access shaft, which permits access to the Quant channel for construction and maintenance. The Quantit channel, the Quantit's water carrying channel, and then at the bottom you have the outlet, and then you have distribution. A network of dams, gates, and channels is used to distribute the water on irrigated land. Now, like my whole thing is here is like, were they using copper wands to find water? Man, I can't think of the name at the moment. I don't want to go out and grab them. Dowsing rods. Yes, dowsing rods, because they use dowsing rods to find water. So I'm wondering if what was their way of being able to find water in the middle of the desert, barren desert. So definitely some ancient technology, or maybe even some advanced technology being used that either has been forgotten, suppressed, or yet to be rediscovered. Let's continue. This technological innovation enabled the Garamantes to establish a network of agricultural oases that supported their population and facilitated trade with neighboring regions. In time, they were one of the most thriving urban societies in an otherwise arid, harsh landscape that is the North African desert. The Garamantes were skilled builders and architects, as evident by their impressive ruins of their cities such as Jerma, also known as Jerma. Such urban centers featured well planned layouts, fortified walls, and sophisticated infrastructure, including public buildings, granaries, and residential areas. The existence of these cities indicates a complex hierarchical society with specialized labor and centralized governance. Here we have a detail from the Ziltan mosaic in Roman Libya depicting execution of Garamantian prisoners. Well, pretty on par for the Romans to use lions to kill people. We should bring that back for like pedophiles and everyone responsible for the jab. But I digress. Trade also played a vital role in the prosperity of the Garamantes, who acted as intermediaries between the Mediterranean world to the north and sub Saharan Africa to the south. They exchanged commodities such as ivory, gold, slaves, and exotic goods with neighboring peoples, including the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Carthaginians. This trade network brought wealth and cultural exchange to the Garamantian civilization, influencing their art, agriculture, and religious practices. The Garamantes maintained diplomatic relations with their neighbors, often engaging in alliances and conflicts with other Saharan tribes and Mediterranean powers. They resisted attempts at conquest by outside forces, including the Romans, who sought to expand their empire into North Africa. The Garamantes successfully defended their territory for centuries, preserving their autonomy and independence. They also conducted significant raids into Roman territories, beyond the borders of their provinces. This tells us that they also had a powerful army at their disposal, which would make sense considering that they were pretty much the middleman for the Mediterranean and sub-Saharan Africa. So you have a microcosm of culture, philosophy, and warfare that is essentially just fermenting in this civilization and giving it the capabilities to, maintain its autonomy while essentially being surrounded by powerhouses. Very, very telling. Apologies for some of these ads. I know they are pretty wild, but over at Ancient Origins, I gotta get the bills paid and keep the lights on. The identity of the desert peoples. For a very long time, scholars and historians debated about the exact origins and ethnicity of this ancient tribe. The origins of the Garamantes are, for the most part, shrouded in myth and legend, with ancient Greek and Roman writers providing tantalizing but often contradictory accounts. According to Herodotus, the Greek historian, the Garamantes were a nomadic tribe descended from the god Amun and the Ethiopian queen Tingis. Check out my live stream episode where I covered Queen Sheba of Ethiopia. This mythical ancestry suggests a divine lineage and reflects the importance of religious beliefs in Garamantian society. Herodotus wrote, quote, "After 10 days' journey again from Angula, there is yet another hill of salt, and springs of water, and many fruit-bearing palms. As at the other places, men live there called Garamantes, an exceedingly great nation, who saw an earth which they have laid on the salt. The shortest way to the lotus eaters' country is from here, 30 days' journey distant. Among the Garamantes are the cattle that go backward as they graze, the reason being that their horns carve forward, therefore not being able to go forward, since the horns would stick in the ground. They walk backward grazing. Otherwise, they are like other cattle, except that their hide is thicker and harder to touch. These Garamantes go in their 4-horse chariots, chasing the cave-dwelling Ethiopians. For the Ethiopian cave dwellers are swifter of foot than any man of whom tales are brought to us. They live on snakes and lizards, and such like creeping things. Their speech is like no other in the world. It is like squeaking of bats." End quote. Subsequent historians have greatly dissected this account of Herodotus. They interpreted their chasing of Ethiopians as their great emphasis on slave trading. Historian Carlos Magavita writes, quote, "Those taking Herodotus' account verbatim might be disappointed that he remained silent on living merchandises potentially added that gold, such as humans, i.e., slaves. But other parts of this text are conveniently interpreted with a view of slave raiding and trading. There are Garamantes hunting the swift-footed Ethiopian troglodytes on 4-horse chariots. Whilst the chariots are identified in the form of Saharan rock art, the troglodytes remain mysterious." Wait, hold on. We'll finish this. Although the ancient Greek text does neither state whether these hunts were slave raids or not, nor were they actually took place, the frequent reinterpretation of this text passage was jointly responsible for the creation of the myth of the Saharan slave raids against black Africans in historical times. The scene, a drive hunt on warlike chariots, gives rise to some speculation. Hunting people for other purposes than for enslaving them is admittedly hard to imagine, but nevertheless should be taken into consideration as long as speculation prevails. Okay, hold on. So, is Herodotus saying that the Garamantians were hunting troglodytes? So cave people? Okay, because I've heard stories about, excuse me, I've heard stories of cavemen, still running about and being enslaved. I wasn't sure if it was just, hyperbole. But I've heard of this, and I just kind of thought it was, like I said, hyperbole, nothing really to take seriously. But this is very, very interesting. Because, to imagine that the Garamantes were hunting troglodytes, I mean, that's essentially cave people, cavemen, ooga booga. That's essentially what they were going after, and were possibly enslaving. Now, I've heard about stories of them interbreeding with, humans. So I've heard of these stories, but I just wasn't sure if there was anything really to substantiate them. And even here, they can't really substantiate the claims, but I've heard it somewhere else spoken. So it definitely leads you to wonder. I mean, and just think about it. Just imagine um, the the possibility that they were hunting and killing, cavemen for whatever purpose. I mean, maybe it's because of via religion or whatever it may be, but that's definitely a very fascinating and interesting speculation. And so much so, I hope you hit that like button and subscribe. But that is wild. I'll tell you, man. If you read some of the accounts by Herodotus and his interactions with Egyptian priests, man, it gets really fishy and really weird real quick. Especially when those Egyptian priests start talking about North America, and you gotta start asking yourself, how the hell did the Egyptians know about North America? I mean, granted, they were hiring mercenaries um, from Scotland, and the possibility of or Ireland, I should say, and the possibility that Scotland could trace its origin and lineage back to an Egyptian princess. But I mean, things just start getting really funky when you start learning the true history, which I have done a live stream on the Egyptian tie to Scotland, so make sure to check that one out. But I digress. Let us get back into it. All right. The power channeled the power channeled from the Sahara. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Garamantes initially inhabited the Jebel Akhdar plateau in central Libya, before expanding into the surrounding desert regions. Their transition from a semi-nomadic lifestyle to settled agricultural communities coincided with the development of their sophisticated water management system. By harnessing the natural resources of the Sahara, the Garamantes were able to sustain growing populations and establish permanent settlements. Here we have the ruins of Garama, a great city of the Garamantes. Man, I wonder what it must have looked like way back in the day. The peak of the Garamantian power and influence occurred during the first millennia BC, when they controlled vast swaths of territory stretching from the Fezzan region in modern-day Libya to parts of present-day Algeria and Chad. Their dominance over key trade routes brought them wealth and prestige, allowing them to exert influence over neighboring tribes and kingdoms. The Garamantes are also believed to have engaged in conflict with the Roman Empire during the late Republic and early Imperial periods. Roman sources describe military campaigns launched against the Garamantes in an effort to secure control over the lucrative trans-Sahara trade routes. These conflicts resulted in occasional skirmishes and diplomatic negotiations, but ultimately failed to subjugate the resilient Garamantian civilization. Despite their military encounters with outside powers, the Garamantes maintained a distinct cultural identity and way of life. Their society was characterized by social stratification, with a ruling elite presiding over a class-based hierarchy and included farmers, artisans, and traders. The Garamantes developed their own unique artistic styles, evident in the decoration of pottery, jewelry, and agricultural motifs found at archaeological sites. The mystery of the Garamantian ethnicity. For many decades, the scholarly world was divided on the ethnicity and race of the Garamantes. Some suggested that they were light skinned and linked to the Berber tribes. Others, however, claimed that they were black Africans. Only after extensive genetic research on the skeletal remains of deceased Garamantes was it concluded that they belonged to the Mediterranean type, being termed Euro-Africans. Oh boy. Oh boy. Euro-Africans. Well, that's going to cause some uprest. The Garamantians contained a significant component of light-skinned Libyans, and some at least of these people were buried in monumental graves. This picture differs from the situation in the Sahara in the late Neolithic, as Chalma's work suggests a higher proportion of not expecting this, but I'm all for it. Chalma's work suggests a higher proportion of Negroid types at that date, which might suggest the creation of the Garamantian civilization evolved in the immigration of at least some part of the population from regions to the north or northeast. The cemeteries contain a substantial number, over 50%, of individuals of either mixed blood or full Negro cysonomy. I know this article was written in 2024, but why is it written as if it was 1945? Okay, let's keep going. Some of these individuals may have been in poorer graves, but not all of them, suggesting that some individuals of mixed race or black skin were prominent within Garamantian society. Given the literary testimony of Garamantian raids against their Ethiopian neighbors. Okay, hold on. Where was I? Okay, given the literary testimony of Garamantian raids against their Ethiopian neighbors, it is likely that some of the some of the Negroes present were slaves or descendants of slaves. The maintenance of strong non-Negroid traits into late and post-Garamantian contexts would seem to indicate that intermixing of the races was not completely open and may have been structured within Garamantian society. Matley, 2003. Oh, I was reading a quote? Oh, I apologize, everyone. I was like, I know the author ain't the author of the article ain't writing like this. Okay, so this was a quote from Mattingly from 2003. Okay, 2003. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But why is he using Negroid? This is fucking Africa. They don't talk like that. Go to Africa and call someone a Negro in Africa and see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't do it here in North America, all right, unless you're of a darker complexion, and you know what kind of dark complexion I'm talking about. But like, this is Africa. There's no Negroes in Africa. And the term Negro wasn't even coined until the 1800s. But I digress. No, the 1700s. Yeah, the 1700s. In the UK. But anyways, let's continue. Let's continue. Man, I don't even know what to say about all that. But anyways, Still, there is no doubt that the ancient Garamantes traded extensively with all their neighbors, including the tribes of sub-Saharan Africa. This tribe resulted in cultural exchange and possibly a lot of intermarrying, which made the Garamantes in many ways unique. Where did they go? History is never standing in place. It changes, and great kingdoms change with it, often disappearing. The decline of the Garamantes coincided with the border historical shifts in the Mediterranean and Saharan deserts. So here we have a map of the Garamantes in 600 AD. They dominated North Africa before the arrival of Islam. So if that's the case, they must have been. This is speculation. They must have been practicing, some form of multi god religion. Just speculation. But you can see how eventually the changing of borders and the expansion of certain kingdoms and empires can definitely affect, probably mostly through trade, finances, um, lack of interest in getting to sub-Saharan Africa or other routes that were more applicable and more affordable. But I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Let's continue. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the spread of Christianity, and the rise of Islamic civilization all contributed to the transformation of political and cultural landscapes. By the 6th century AD, the fortunes of the Germanians began to decline. The rise of the trans-Sahara trade routes bypassed their traditional territories, diminishing their economic importance. I guess I was right. Additionally, environmental factors such as desertification and changing climate conditions may have contributed to the abandonment of some Germanian settlements. Gradually, their once flourishing civilization entered a period of decline, and by the 7th century AD, Germanian civilization had faded into obscurity, leaving behind enigmatic ruins and tantalizing clues about their past. In time, they had disappeared from the historical record completely. The exact fate of the Garamantes remains a subject of debate among scholars. Some theories suggest that they were assimilated into neighboring populations, while others propose that they were migrated to other regions or were absorbed by emerging Islamic civilizations of North Africa. The lack of written records from the Germanian perspective complicates our understanding of their ultimate fate, leaving much of their story shrouded in mystery. Today, this tribe remains one great historical enigma, and historians yearn to know more about this seemingly powerful and very advanced civilization. There is no doubt, however, that the ancient Garamantes were a remarkable civilization whose ingenuity, resilience, and cultural achievements left an undeniable mark on the history of North Africa. Through their mastery of water management, urban planning, and trade, they thrived in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. And that is no small thing. While their civilization eventually succumbed to economic, environmental, and perhaps political pressures, the legacy of the Garamantes continues to intrigue and inspire scholars and enthusiasts alike, offering valuable insights into the complexities of human adaptation and survival in the face of adversity. They will continue to be studied. And there you have it. The mystery of the Garamantian civilization. Cool little piece of history, I might say so myself. Hopefully, in due time, more archaeological sites regarding this ancient civilization will be uncovered because their their water management technique is incredible, and it really makes you wonder, where did they uncover this knowledge and techniques and technological innovation. Definitely something to find out, because to understand where they gathered that knowledge will better understand their origins and how they came to be. Really fascinating. Definitely enjoyed this little nugget of history. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you've made it this far and you are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.